It was the summer of 1816, a summer unlike any other. The world called it the year without a summer, a time of strange, cold darkness caused by a volcanic eruption half a world away. I found myself by the shores of Lake Geneva, a guest at the Villa Diodati. The days were relentlessly dark, not with the gentle twilight of evening, but with a heavy, oppressive gloom. Rain fell in endless sheets, turning the beautiful Swiss landscape into a waterlogged prison. We were trapped indoors far more than we wished, a small group of restless spirits seeking refuge from the storm. With me were some of the brightest and most tempestuous minds of the age. There was Lord Byron, our host, a man whose genius was as famous as his scandals. His presence was electric, a storm of poetry and passion contained within a single man. Then there was Percy Bysshe Shelley, my beloved, my dear Shelley. His mind was a universe of soaring ideals and radical thought, though he was often troubled by the shadows that danced at the edges of his own brilliance. And completing our small circle was John Polidori, Byron's physician, a young man of intelligence and ambition, quietly observing us all. We were poets, dreamers, and rebels, all confined by the ceaseless rain. The days stretched on, filled with endless conversations about philosophy, science, and the supernatural. We read German ghost stories aloud, our voices echoing in the grand, shadowy rooms of the villa as thunder rattled the window panes. The atmosphere was charged, ripe with a strange, creative energy born of confinement and intellectual fervor. It was during one of these long, dark evenings that Lord Byron, ever the provocateur, made a proposal. To pass the time, he suggested a contest. Each of us was to write a ghost story, a tale to chill the blood and unsettle the mind. Imagine it. This gathering of poets and thinkers, daring one another to conjure specters from the ink of our pens, to pierce the very veil of the unknown. The challenge was accepted with enthusiasm. Byron, ever confident, began sketching out a tale. Shelley, inspired, immediately set to work on his own fragments of horror. Even Polidori found his muse, crafting a story that would later become The Vampire, a landmark in its own right. But I struggled. While my companions scribbled away, their minds alight with ghastly ideas, mine remained stubbornly blank. Day after day when they asked, "Have you thought of a story?" I was forced to admit, with a mortifying sense of inadequacy, that I had not. Nights passed, and the weight of expectation pressed upon me. It was more than just a friendly competition. It felt like a test of my own imagination. I wanted so desperately to prove myself, to create something worthy of the company I kept. I would sit for hours, trying to force an idea, but my mind was a barren landscape. I felt a profound anxiety, a fear that I, who had lived and breathed stories my entire life, had nothing left to tell. The pressure mounted with each passing rainy day, each knowing glance from my companions. Then, one evening, after another long discussion about the nature of life and the experiments of Dr. Darwin and the galvanists who claimed they could reanimate dead tissue with electricity, I went to bed. But I did not sleep. My mind was churning, a whirlwind of the day's conversations. I lay in the darkness, my eyes wide open, and it was then that the vision came to me. It wasn't a dream, not in the way one usually dreams. It was a waking nightmare, so vivid and terrifyingly real that it felt as though it were happening in the room with me. I saw him, a pale student of unhallowed arts, his face etched with a terrifying mixture of obsession and dread. He was kneeling, his hands trembling, beside the thing he had created. It was a ghastly patchwork of human remains, stitched together with a horrifying, blasphemous artistry. I saw the hideous phantasm of a man stretched out, and then, through the working of some powerful engine, I saw it show signs of life. It began to stir, a clumsy, convulsive motion. And then it opened its eye. A dull, yellow, watery eye. It breathed hard. and a shudder ran through its limbs. That moment, that single horrific image, froze me with a terror that was absolute. It was the terror of seeing the unthinkable become real, of witnessing a profound violation of nature's most sacred laws. The Creator, who had dreamed of bringing life to the inanimate, was now horrified by his own success. He rushed from the room, desperate to escape his monstrous creation, hoping that the glimmer of life would fade, and this creature would return to the silence of death. But when he awoke, he found the thing standing by his bedside, looking down at him, its watery eyes fixed upon him, one hand stretched out, as if to detain him. I was paralyzed by the vision, my heart pounding in my chest. Yet, through the horror, another feeling emerged: inspiration. A jolt of electrifying clarity. This was it. This was my story. The terror that had gripped me was the very terror I needed to convey. By the first light of morning, the vision was still seared into my mind. I knew what I had to do. I sat down at my desk and began to write, the words pouring out of me. It started with, "It was on a dreary night of November." What began as a simple challenge among friends, a way to pass a rainy summer holiday, had become my obsession, my life's work. It became my story, my Frankenstein. I was only 18 years old when that vision visited me in the dark. A young woman, surrounded by literary giants, struggling to find her own voice. And through that waking nightmare, that glimpse into the abyss of creation and consequence, I gave birth to a creature that the world would never forget. A story not just of a monster, but of monstrosity itself, of ambition, loneliness, and the terrifying responsibility that comes with playing God. It was a story born of a dark summer, a sleepless night, and a single horrifying vision, and it has haunted the world ever since. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back to that fateful summer. It's a story I hold very close to my heart, and sharing it with you means the world. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the past, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more stories from history. Your support allows me to keep sharing these incredible moments. Until next time, stay curious.